pleasure of introducing our guest of honor, General Darren McDew, Commander, U.S. Transportation Command. U.S. Transcom is a single manager for global air, land, and sea transportation for the Department of Defense. General McDew was commissioned in 1982 following his graduation from the Virginia Military Institute. He began his flying career at Loring Air Force Base, Maine, and has over 3,300 flight hours. Please join me.
How much more of that are you going to read?
Just one more line.
Okay, so the really best part in there is not in there. It doesn't say in there that he's a grandfather now, and that's really awesome. See, I didn't realize until he was born that I would give all that up plus my children to have a grandson. Go ahead, finish what you got to do.
So please join me in giving a warm welcome to our guest of honor this evening, General Darren McDew.
This is always fun, and that is to find all your stuff when you come up here. And usually all the binders don't fit, and if you don't put them back in the right place, somebody will lose their place, and you'll mess up the entire program. So I'm freaking out right now because I don't know what to do with this thing. So that's why you get an aide. Thank you. How about those other things? So how long have you been in this job now?
3 weeks, sir.
3 weeks? Okay. How do you think it's going? Thanks, Cassie. All right. All right, that's Cassie Crosby. So Cassie's an Army officer. If you've not picked up on that, this is a joint command, so that was really good. Let me do a couple quick things. First, let me tell you, full disclosure, I've been sitting with some of the greatest humans in the world tonight. We've had a blast talking. One of them has been eyeballing me all night, but I think she's over that now. But what a wonderful conversation I've had, and it's a great reminder of why I come do events like this. Now, here's the full disclosure part. I'm a general. I have a large staff, and they write really good stuff. And then there are presentations like this where I really care, and so they write stuff like this, right? And it was about 15, 16 pages worth. I wrote this. So you're gonna get this version. The problem is, it's on here, here, and here, and the 3 pieces of paper she just handed me. So just bear with me for a second. We're gonna get through this. It'll be fine. And hopefully there's still time for question and answers, because that's been the best part of tonight so far for me. Let me start with something that I'm particularly good at. And you have to know what you're good at and go with it. So let me start with, if I can get the following people to come up here for a second. And I may mess this up. Alexis Colazo, Cadet Pennington, Cadet Tinnies, and Cadet Shotnick. Are they still here? Just make your way up here in a timely fashion. We're gonna see see how this is gonna work. He can't see, but he made it good. Just come around here, so my friends need to know that you like me. So, as we were watching all of this, in our tradition, I don't think we give enough credit to a lot of the folks who do some amazing work at events like this. And one of the things I'm good at is thanking people. So let me say thank you very much. I want to have your voice when I grow up.
Thank you, sir.
Very nicely done. Thank you. Very nicely done. Thank you very much. Is there an Cadet Gerner in the audience? Where are you? Okay, I see you waving back there. Are you the one that was a 5th grader when your dad worked for me? That's you? If I could see that far, I'd say, good to see you again. Please come see me before the end of the night so I can say hi to you. Great to see you. Wonderful events like that. Her dad is awesome. I hope she agrees with me. What slide is up there now? That one, okay. There's a long story behind that one right there. Let me do with a couple things. One, I'm extremely excited. I am a little bit nervous because I haven't completely figured out what I'm going to say. But what I have figured out is what I want to do is talk to you. And let's deal in hypotheticals for just a second. Sometimes the real thing is hard to deal with. The hypotheticals are this. Let's assume I'm a 4-star general in the United States Air Force, working at a combatant command, and I've got 35, nearly 36 years of service, which means I've got far more service behind me than I have ahead of me. Let's say that every time I come to an event like this, and you've been gracious enough to invite me now twice, bad on you, I get far more from it than I give. Let's say hypothetically that I now want to try to pay back as best I can tonight, which will probably be the last time you invite me back, because once I take this uniform off, who cares who I am? At least when I have the uniform on, I have a reason to be an old dude. Outside the uniform, I'm just a random old dude. So I'm excited to be here. It is wonderful reconnecting with old friends. Meeting and spending time with you is a joy. I see in you youth, vitality, passion, and most importantly, promise. It reminds me I wasn't always old. It reminds me, that's why I use this picture. This picture takes me back to almost when I was you. It's pretty bad. You know you're old when you use a picture of you when you're old to explain you're not old. But this picture is important to me, and I use it in all my presentations for a couple of very good reasons. One, it does take me back to the foundation of our United States Air Force, and that's the squadron. I was a squadron commander of the greatest airlift squadron in the history of mankind. That would be the mighty 14th Airlift Squadron. And you'll see that patch on my right shoulder. You'll see those blue silver oak leaves on my shoulder. And you'll see me pretending to not pay much attention to the fact that we're not behind the tanker that we're supposed to be behind, but that's another story altogether. That picture takes me back to a time when I was an aviator, and I did that for a living, and I was good at it. It takes me back to when I knew my people. There were 170 people in that squadron. I knew every single one of them by name. I knew all of their spouses by name. We had about 1.5 gazillion children, so I couldn't get them all named up, but I could get the right kids matched to the right families. And because I'm an introvert engineer, I had to work very hard to do that. That was something I had to learn to do. Those are very, very important reasons that I use this picture. But the most important reason I use that picture is a simple one. I look good in that picture. I'm not kidding. I could use one of me today, but I like that picture. Next slide, please. I told you that I'm good at one thing, and that's thanking people. That when you get to this point in your career, there's not a crowd that you can stand in front of that you can't thank for something. And you'll never find an audience that has been overthanked. I have given this charge to now 8 commands that I have commanded, and that is, I will stop thanking you when I get the following IG complaint. He thanked us far too much. He got us far too much recognition for the things we've done, and we're sick and tired of it. I've had 8 commands now and not gotten that complaint yet, which tells me my theory is probably true. We don't thank people enough, and it can't be overdone if done sincerely. I thank you for making the decision that you have made to be here with us tonight. I also want to thank TCCC number 9. That's Transcom Commander number 9. That's General McNabb. And Team Woodward. I also want to thank all the Board of Trustees and all the leaders out here who voluntarily give their time, their experience to make you better. Thank you. what a wonderful journey this has been. 35, nearly 36 years of enjoyment. Now, not every single day, but if you connect them all, I wouldn't undo one of them. And luckily for me, they're all connected. So now I'm the commander of U.S. Transportation Command. How many of you have ever been to a place where you had these paid professional speakers come up, but when they get announced, they get a hero video that comes up? You've seen those? There's a testimonial that kind of comes with it. You've seen those? And you have celebrities say how wonderful they are. Well, when I became a 4-star, I said, I need a hero video. I'm a 4-star. We can find some people who say nice things about me. Why don't we put together a hero? No, we can't, Maggie? No? We can. So let me, not very many, but we can. So I have a really good team, and let me roll for you my hero video. Some people don't believe that transportation and logistics is sexy, but I think it is. And I will tell you, the difference between my hero video and the hero videos that some celebrities use, mine has actual heroes in it. So I tell you, I'm in a joint command, and I think the Army transporters say it best. Nothing happens until something moves. And there's only one superpower in the world today. There's some other great powers. There's some debate about it. And if you look at the definition between superpower and great power, what makes us different is our ability to project power and influence into the near abroad of the other great powers. The only reason that we are and they're not is people that do that. We all have good airplanes. Not everybody can project it somewhere. We all have good soldiers. Not everybody can get it there. We can get it there when we want to and where we want to. I get to brag about that all the time, so thanks. So what about tonight? What am I going to tell you? So why am I standing up here at this advanced age of my life, barely able to make it? And why do I get to talk to a group of people that is talented, with so much promise and future ahead of them as you? Well, someone made the mistake of inviting me, so I get that. But I'm here to tell you about a story. And every one of you has a story. I enjoyed hearing the story at my table. I would love to hear all of yours. But here's how I think that story unfolds. First, there's kind of this foundation of family and friends and your values and your ethics, your education and your experience that give you the background to begin your journey. Then you have an entry into this profession of arms. For us, your degree gets you started. And then you take the most important decision of your life, and for many of you, it will be an 80-word oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That oath, with that oath, you make a promise. You make a promise to the American public that you're going to join what I call an amazing meritocracy, where performance matters, technical expertise matters, but it only matters because you're upholding that promise every single day that you made to the American people that you will get better tomorrow than you were today, that you're going to bear true faith and allegiance to that oath. We're going to send you to some school and some staff assignments, but ultimately it's for one reason, and we could care less the minute after you get that degree what it's in. We want you to lead. We want you to inspire people. We want you to command. We want you to demonstrate that you have the potential to serve in the higher grade or higher positions. That's the story of the profession of arms. But everybody knows a story, everybody has a story, but what makes one story seemingly more successful than another one? I think it's simple. It's a lesson that I give to every senior officer group that I talk to, from capstone to pinnacle, that's 1 stars to 3 stars to chief master sergeants to senior sergeants major. Here's the difference. You must know who you are, but most importantly, understand who you are not. Well, who am I? I'm the shy kid who actually enjoyed school. I found knowledge and self-esteem through books. I was boring my table earlier. I read every biography in the library. It was a place you went to back in the day to get books. Books were something people read before there were tablets. And I read all of them because in the segregated South that I grew up in, that's how I transported myself from where I was to where I thought it could be. In my neighborhood, not all of those lessons about school and reading were as popular. And so one of the lessons that I had to learn was popular wasn't the end goal. I initially turned to sports, and as you can see, I'm not 6'7". At the time I turned to basketball, I was more like 4'7". That really was 4'7". But I found out that on a team, if you worked hard, your teammates appreciated your hustle. And if you read a lot, you were the only ones that memorized the plays, you got to play. And that was beneficial. What I learned in that was not a better crossover dribble or a jump shot. I learned the thing that I would ultimately turn pro in, leading people. I found out that the jocks would be okay with me playing on the team, and the nerds, I could get along with them because I was one and still am. But I learned that all of those things showed me examples of things that could be, not necessarily what they were. It took me a while, but I learned more about me. Remember, know who you are, but understand more importantly who you're not. I learned that I'm an introvert and it's okay to be an introvert. I learned that I had to become the extrovert my command needed me to be. And I finally got confidence to understand I could be that when necessary. There are some sociologists in the world, and some of you might be one of them, that say that value programming happens at about 12 years old. That's where you get your values and your ethics and your grounding for who you're going to be. Well, I was kind of value programmed during the Vietnam War. I watched returning POWs come home one day on a C-141 landing at Travis Air Force Base, and they were in the airplane coming home looking far less the people that they were when they left. And when they came off the airplane to the crowds of people, family and friends that were greeting them, many of them could barely walk. Many of them had limbs missing or broken. They were a bit disheveled. Many of them had been in captivity for a number of years. But what I watched that day were a group of men come off an airplane, proud to be home. Proud that their nation at that time looked like they were happy to see them come home. Some of them kissed the ground when they landed. All of them wanted to leave the plane under their own power. Every last one of them, whether they could or not, wanted to salute the senior official at the bottom of the stairs. And I watched them all try. Some left-handed because they no longer had a right hand, some with whatever they could muster. That value programmed me. Move forward. I believe that you're also value programmed in your professional life. At about 10 or 12 years in your professional life, there's some value programming that goes on. I was a Cold Warrior. In my world, the Soviet Union was waiting in any minute to come and take us down. All of my study, all of my practice was to fight the big fight. That was the world I knew, and I was taught that by a bunch of Vietnam-era veterans. So see where I was value programmed. So how do you take those experiences and let them mature you without allowing them to shackle you to the past? It's very easy for me to go back and say those were the good old days, to go back on my experience and say that's the way it ought to be. But is that the challenge we face today? Not exactly. That rigid compliance culture is not the culture that's going to thrive us in the new world against cyber demands and others. The bottom line is you learn who you are and who you want to be and need to be. Never forget how to dream. My dreams came through books. But you can't forget to dream. There's a quote here I've got, I think. This is talking about a number of things, but throughout our history, there have been people that will tell you quickly you can't do something. But I love this quote. Not afraid of failure, not afraid of the truth, thinkers, not afraid of progress, and dreamers, not afraid to take action. That's bigger than you think it is. And you're those people right now. Believe it or not, you're those people right now. You're the reason that I can still serve. You're the reason that I still feel good coming to events like this, because I believe that you're going to get us through whatever this nation and this world faces. So let me end with a story, and I hope you have a question or two, and if it's anything like this, folks at this table, you have some that'll scare me. So I've got this thing I call Beware, Decide, Be. It's a very simple lesson. Most of you will graduate at some point, and you'll believe that your tests will be over. Your life tests will only begin. When you finish the test that people will give you a schedule for, those pop quizzes, you say, well, how unfair is that? Well, life can be somewhat unfair. And I will tell you right now, beware of the tests. The tests don't come in things that you always find important, but they may be important to someone else. I'll give you an example. 150 years ago, I start off on my new assignment. I've just finished pilot training in biplanes with the Wilbur and Orville Wright. I left a pilot training base that a young kid from Arizona didn't even know existed. But anyway, I go off to Loring Air Force Base, Maine, and I'm getting ready to fight the big one. I get up there in the middle of the wintertime, and the first thing they do is they want you to fly with an experienced crew. So they put you with a crew, and they tell you, kid, all you have to do is go on, sit, listen, and learn, pay attention, and you'll grow from that. I believe them. But I wanted to do a couple things before the flight. So I went over to base operations and got myself a chart. And I got with a navigator, and I drew my own route of flight for practice, and to make sure that I understood where we were flying that day. I also got an approach plate. And the approach plate will tell you all the instrument approaches that were flown at the bases we were going to do pattern work. And I just wanted to understand what they were doing when they were doing it when I was sitting and watching. And then I went home and I read my -1. The -1 is your Bible for the airplane. Section 2 of the -1 is normal procedures. I had not flown for a little while, so I read the entire Section 2, which is about yay thick. Didn't make my new bride all that happy that I was sitting at home reading that much, but I did. Then I decided I ought to brush up on my emergency procedures, Section 3 of the -1, and I read that. And because I'd gone to pilot training in Arizona and initial qual in California, and I was now in Maine, I thought I ought to read Section 7, which I'd never read before, cold weather procedures. It was a good idea that I read those. Next day, we go out on a 7.5-hour sortie. 5 hours into the sortie, what happens? They turn to the new guy, who they feel embarrassed, and they say, "Hey, kid, get in the seat." So I get up out of the jump seat, jump into the right seat. I have just enough time to strap in, get myself adjusted, and brief the approach that I'm going to fly. Section 2 of the -1 says the pilot flying the approach must brief the following things verbatim prior to initiating the approach to the crew. Well, I just read it last night. Right through the brief. I had just studied the approach the night before. Flew the approach, an ILS, touch and go, off we went, they kicked me out. Was it the best landing and approach I'd ever flown? No, wasn't bad though. We fly a couple more hours, we land. What's the first question everyone in the squadron wants to know about the new guy when they get back? How'd the new guy do? They went, Is that a grade? You bet it is. Transpose that onto a classmate of mine who shows up at the same base 6 months earlier because he was a navigator and he had gone through training a little sooner. He gets up there and has that same first experience without the additional things. They threw him in the seat. And here's the technical term to what happened to him. He flailed. They come back and they say, "How'd the new guy do?" And they go, Is that a grade? It is. It is. He never recovered. By the time I got there 6 months later, he was on super secret probation, not allowed to transit outside the continental United States without a supervisor. Mine went from, to another sortie that went pretty well, to another sortie that went well. What happens? You build a reputation for being pretty good. Then if you have a mistake, you can overcome it. Beware of the test. The next piece is decide. You can change your trajectory anytime you decide to. My opinion is you ought to do it now. Decide right now the type of person, officer, partner, friend that you want to be. I decided a long time ago that I was going to work out and look appropriate in a military uniform until the day I took it off. I wanted to one day look as good as General McNabb does years later when I retire in my uniform that I can still wear. That's a decision that I made. I also made a decision that I was going to be somebody of integrity before the Air Force had those as core values. It was important to me. I still shine my own shoes, although I don't have to. I do it for me. It was a decision I made about the type of person and officer I was going to be. Now here comes the hard part. Next slide. Everybody talks a good game. The B part is hard. Everybody joins, raises their right hand, and they're on fire for 2 years. 36 years later, getting up at 4:30 in the morning to go to the gym is hard. Shining your shoes is hard. Studying is hard. But if you make a decision that it's for you and not for anything else, and if you remember that promise you made to the American people, it gets easier and rewarding. My uniform is nothing individual. Every single unit I've been a teammate on has won a unit award in my entire career. It's the proudest thing I wear. The other thing hidden in between all this is an Army Commendation Medal. I do not have an Air Force Commendation Medal. I have an Army Commendation Medal presented to me by my teammates at Fort Bragg by the 82nd Airborne Division Commander. That is proud for me. And I will tell you, it's because I was beware the test, I decided who I was, and then I went about being it every single day. Not when it's convenient, not when I feel like it, not when it makes me look good, but every day, little bit by little. Now, of the hundreds of things I could have told you tonight, I was hoping that that's a little bit of wisdom from an old dude that you might find useful down the road. I will tell you, if you remember it and apply it, it works every day. You won't be Kardashian famous, but that's okay. All right, did you write me a pithy ending? Where is she? Do we have pithy? Yeah, there it is. My favorite philosopher. So with all the things we face in the world, Dr. Seuss had it about right, and that's the Lorax. Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. I stand here because I believe in you. I stand here because I know that we're the greatest planet, greatest nation on earth because we have people like you in it. But we owe something to the rest of the world to be good teammates. I hope that was helpful, and I'm scared to death to now take your questions.